Hello and welcome to the Six Star Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Aveline Clark, and you're about to listen to another incredible episode with an amazing human all about how they are making a difference in the world using their passion, their purpose, and the alignment of their genius. Because I believe that we make the greatest impact in our life when we combine our passion with our purpose and our genius. That's where the magic happens. This conversation is going to be good because they always are. There's so much to gain from these. They're beautiful, they're inspiring, and I invite you to open up to see the possibilities of what you can do in your life too. Enjoy. This conversation is with Dex Randall, a burnout coach who tells an amazing story of how he got to where he is today and how he's doing what he's doing. He tells the story, and I'll give you a clue. There's 2 Mack truck events. You know when the universe says, you're on the wrong path, time to get on the right path. Well, this happened to Dex twice. Most people, it's once. Some people, if you're unlucky, it's more than once. And that's what happened to Dex. So he shares with me this story, but it led him in the right direction. It took him to be on path. And now he's living his genius, his purpose. He wakes up every day and feels joy and fulfillment and helps other people to recover, to get onto their path and their true path as well. So in a way, he's a perfect guest for this podcast, and he's in alignment, and I love it. I love the outcome. I love what we touched on. He's a really fascinating man, and what it also shows is that this can happen to anybody. And Dex is a very healthy, fit guy who just was on the wrong path. So take heed, because there's a lesson in this. There's wisdom in these conversations, and Dex shares a lot of that in this. It's beautiful. Enjoy this one with Dex Randall. Hello, Dex. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's an absolute pleasure.
Delightful to be here, Aveline. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to this. This is one of my favorite things to do, to get to speak to people on my podcast, because I get to know people better and I get to share your genius and your brilliance with the world. So how about we get stuck in and I get to ask you a bunch of questions about you.
Go for your life. I haven't got any secrets.
Oh, really?
Apart from all my secrets.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get any of the secrets out. The first questions are pretty hard. So it's where are you in the world? Who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Okay, easy questions. Start off at 10. I am in Sydney, Australia, not too far from yourself. And I work with professional men in burnout. I work internationally. I've got a lot of clients in North America, some in Europe, here and there around South America, mostly. And I coach them out of burnout, and I gently push them in the direction of the career they always wish they'd had.
Well, that's summing it up succinctly, and I can't wait to tap into more about that shortly. What do you do in your spare time, Dex, when you're not busy coaching?
Well, yeah, good question. I like to be on the water, to be honest. I'm a bit of a fan of surf skiing. I live on Sydney Harbour. I'm just like super lucky. I live on this beautiful harbour. I just come out of my house and walk down the road and straight onto the harbour. So I go out usually in the early morning, 5, 6 o'clock. Or else I go down to Bondi Beach, I'm a member of the surf club down there, and I do some handboarding, body surfing. There's a bunch of old men who go down there, and I go and body surf with them, and then we hang out and have coffee. And to be honest, that is, generally speaking, one of the high spots of my day.
Is it the conversation or the physical exercise, or both?
Oh, mix. Yeah, mix. But they're just ridiculous old people. We never stop laughing. They're just full of stories and anecdotes and rubbish. It's like the School of Lower Education.
How did you come about finding them and figuring out that it was such a cool, fun thing to do?
Yeah, well, actually, it was because I had probably a midlife crisis, and I joined a triathlon group. up in the park near to the beach. And I did that for a while, but I was terrible at swimming. Really, really super bad. I never really learned to swim in the true Pommy tradition. And so I started taking swim lessons, and they took me down to the beach and taught me to swim a little bit in the ocean. And then I got into ocean swim racing, going up and down the seaboard of Australia. And for people who don't know, like even the seaboard around Sydney has probably got about 100 beaches, and you can just pop to one, to another, to another, to another, and the surf clubs usually, and they'll have swim races in the ocean. So I started doing that. That's basically how I got into it. And then I found out in the wintertime when we used to swim and it was freezing, I found out the surf club had hot showers. So I joined naturally. Been there ever since.
I love it. I really love it. I've just got this image of you with a bunch of these older folk splashing about and having coffee and laughing. Sounds brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are in their 70s and 80s.
Mm.
Yeah.
The stories they would tell.
Hilarious. Oh, dear me. I don't know where they get it all from. But a lot of them have been there their whole life at that beach. They've been sharing a surf club for 50 or 60 years.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
Love it. Well, I like to get to know about your journey, if that's okay. And obviously you're not as old as them, so it must be sort of fascinating to hang out with them and learn from them. But tell me, I'm intrigued about the journey. You're obviously working with men and coaching them out of burnout. You didn't just sort of wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be a burnout coach. You obviously got here through your own journey. So I'd love to understand the path that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today. Would you care to take us through, however long that goes for?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a bit boring, so I don't want to go on too long, but I think it's important to come across with it because clearly right in the middle of it, I had my own burnout. So I always worked in IT because I was very logical and very analytical, and I loved coding. I mean, you're telling me I'm not as old as those guys, but actually, when I started working in IT, they hadn't yet invented the personal computer. So I am pretty old. But anyway, I loved it. I went to do maths at uni, ended up doing computer science, and I loved it so much. And I just did it for years and years and years. And I thought it was the perfect career for me because you could be as nerdy as you wanted and nobody cared. And so I did that, and I got into software leadership, and I transferred around different countries. I've been in America and UK and Australia. And I had a very varied career, and it was also highly entertaining, and I loved it until I was quite stressed with my leadership positions. I never really cracked myself up to be much of a communicator or a leader. Well, looking back, I think I was a bit unfair on myself because I actually think I'm quite a good leader. But at the time, it wasn't comfortable, and I got very stressed, and I started to take on jobs that weren't being successful. And I'd had a very, very successful career, and I was a bit shocked not to be able to succeed at my job. It was a bit unexpected. And I had 2 or 3 jobs in a row. I started working for entrepreneurs and startups. I think that's what did it, out of corporate. And a couple of them, I was in a couple of startups that didn't launch. And of course, I couldn't take the pain of that because my specialty had been launching products. I was in one, and they downsized, and I was edged out. Then I went into another startup, and I was in charge of launching, and I never launched there because the CEO, the boss, the founder, didn't want to launch the product because he was a bit scared of how it would be received in public, I think. So I was always pushing forward, and he was always slamming on the brakes, and it was a tug of war, and he was always thinking, oh no, let's do some publicity. Let's do some marketing. Let's make some promo videos. Let's go and raise some more capital. It was never, hey, why don't we launch a product? And in the end, I found that too stressful for me, being unable to do the only thing I was there to do. I couldn't handle it, and my stress just went through the roof. and I started to suffer really badly. And I was starting to dread going to work, and I was ashamed and embarrassed about not being able to do the work. And I think what really happened is it kind of shattered who I thought I was, because I'd always been pretty good at my job and I'd always enjoyed doing it. And suddenly I couldn't do it. And in the end, I went into a meeting with the boss. Tuesday morning it was. And I said, this is what we're going to do. We'll just put this little piece out and give it a run. And he was like, no, I think we should go and get, I can't remember what it was, another capital raise or something. And I looked at him and I just realized in that moment he was never, ever going to let me launch this product. And I said, okay, that's it. This little worm of a thought went through my head, and it was, my stress levels are so high that if I don't take action about it now, the stress is going to kill me. I mean, physically kill me. It just, that little minnow went, and I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do that then. And I said, I'm leaving now. I'm not coming back. It was just like me pulling the ripcord, it's like, oh, I'm out of here. So I left and I didn't go back. And a few weeks later, I was running on the beach and I collapsed and had a heart attack. That nearly took me out. It was close. It was close to the edge. When I got into hospital, they were very angry with me. They said, you should have come in more quickly. I don't know if we can save you. And I was in ICU for a few days, babbling. And I did get away with it, but because I wasn't very old and because I was extremely fit and well in most ways, they were like, what are you doing here anyway? But, well, secretly in the back of my mind, I'm thinking it's burnout. But of course, they don't teach doctors about burnout. So they're like, no, we still don't understand why you're here. Anyway, we fixed you, go home and don't be naughty again, kind of thing. And I tried to find somebody who could help me with the burnout, because I knew it was burnout by then. I could just see it. I could feel it. And they sent me home from hospital and they said, right, lie on a sofa for about 3 months and just walk for 5 minutes per day, gently. But otherwise don't move, because your heart needs complete rest. We can't give it complete rest. It has to keep beating, but let it beat as little as possible for 3 months. I was like, what? What do you mean, actually? I was living by myself. It's not like I could do nothing, but, well, I thought, I've got all this time on my hands. I'm just going to get my burnout fixed. But I couldn't find anyone to help me. Nobody seemed to really know what to do. Out of all the contact, I had a lot of contacts in the natural health world, because I was trained in energy healing and Reiki, kinesiology, NLP, things like that. I was trained myself in, and EFT and those types of things. So I thought, I'll be able to find somebody who could help me. Nobody. I couldn't find anyone who knew what to do. So okay, well, I better find out and teach myself then. That is where it all began.
Holy cow. So had you witnessed or been around anybody prior to the heart attack who now in hindsight had burnout? Like, had you witnessed it or had any kind of experience with someone else having it?
That's a good question. I don't think I actually had. I knew about burnout as a concept, and I saw a lot of people were stressed and anxious. In fact, I saw that perhaps the preponderance of people were stressed and anxious, and I tried to help my team who were feeling scared and anxious too, and kind of smooth the way for them. But no, burnout. No, I don't think I knew anybody who'd actually burnt out.
So how did you then navigate? So you looked for someone to help you. There's no one. You obviously had a fair degree of education and understanding of, different healing modalities. So where did you go to learn?
Actually, the first thing I tried was John Kabat-Zinn, who's got mindfulness-based stress reduction. I thought, I'll do that. And he does a 45-minute meditation every day and another 45-minute body, being in tune with your body. It was so slow and boring. I wanted to shoot him after 2 days. I was like, I can't sit through this. I was trying to do these little wiggles on the sofa, just moving little parts of my body. I just thought, no, this isn't working. I was still too high octane for that. But weirdly, I came across a Facebook ad for a life coach. And I signed up for the program that she had. I can't remember what it said now that attracted my attention. Something about stress reduction, obviously. Anyway, I joined her program. And immediately I learned a whole bunch of stuff in the first couple of weeks. It was super, super helpful, really practical. It was basically, if you're feeling stressed in the moment, go through these processes and stop feeling stressed now. Not teach yourself over 6 months not to feel stressed, but fix it right now. The stress you've got now, fix it now. Or the anxiety you've got now, fix it now. Which I love because I'm not really patient enough for the John Kabat-Zinn. Let's all waft about for 6 months and we'll feel better. I haven't got the patience. So yeah, I mean, that just popped up in my Facebook feed and I signed up, and in the first few weeks, I learned so many things that were practical help for me that I signed up pretty quickly to become a coach because they were teaching coaches as well. So it seemed providential. The universe tapping on the shoulder. And that's the style of work that I still do now.
So how long ago was that, Dex?
So that was, I had my heart attack July 2017. So it's about 6 years ago. And then I just signed up for the coaching program, which was in May 2018. But in January, I was just starting to get vertical again. And I went out on my bike for a little test to see if I could ride my bike, because I'm a very avid cyclist. And I got hit by a car. And then I was in hospital. I broke a lot of bones. It was a very high-speed crash, and it was very, very messy. I went cartwheeling at high speed down the road and broke a lot of bones. And I went through the windscreen of the car. And I ended up in hospital for another 3 months. And the very first week in hospital, well, I thought, I'll be out next week. It'll be fine. Because it takes a week to diagnose what's wrong with you. Even if you've got a lot of broken bones, they don't find out for ages. And they found another thing and another thing and another thing. And they were like, oh, well, you've got 3 limbs out for a kickoff and your hips and your back. It's like, oh, great. They said, you're going to be here for 12 weeks. So I'm like, okay, don't hit anybody. Oh, I haven't got any arms to hit anybody with. But I was only in the hospital 1 week, and my interview came up for the coaching process. I was lying down in bed and I wasn't allowed to move at all in the hospital. So I put the laptop on my front and just bent the screen down so I could see me lying down. I had the interview on Zoom for this coaching program in May. And I was like, I'm not sure if I'll be out of hospital by then, but if I am, I'm coming. It's in America. It's in Dallas. Like, if I'm out of hospital, I'll come. She looked at me in my little hospital gown. She's like, really? It was I couldn't move for 8 weeks. I had to just stay lying in bed. I couldn't move anything. I couldn't clean myself or go to the bathroom or feed myself. I couldn't do anything. Just lie there like a sausage. 8 weeks. It's like, oh, the universe is trying to send me a message. I wonder what the message is. Because that's twice it's stopped me now. And I figured out, well, the only message I could make out of that was, it's trying to teach me how to accept more help. Not just be this Lone Ranger fixing everything. Not my strong suit. Don't like being helpless.
So it was funny as you're talking, I'm thinking of the next question, which is, who did you have to support you and give you help through this?
Well, I had a lot of fabulous nurses, but I was pretty delirious as well. They had me on these painkillers, and I just, for weeks, I didn't really know where I was or anything. I was quite confused. But I couldn't do anything, so the nurses were very helpful. And I had some friends from swimming, from the ocean swimming, which I was doing by then, come and visit me some mornings and bring me a cup of coffee. Oh, just to see a face, and 10 minutes and have a little chat was amazing. And I'd already joined up with the old boys at the beach with my old men, and some of them came to visit me as well. So it's my family are in another country. So. Yeah.
Well, luckily you had a couple of nice friendly faces to come and say hi when you were out of your delirium.
It was wonderful, actually. I can't tell you. And I wasn't always very presentable either, but they still kept coming.
They weren't scared.
They didn't mention it if they were.
Well, obviously,
not glamorous.
No.
Oh, it's not glamorous.
I mean, the way you described the amount of injuries you had, I mean, it must have been messy. And obviously at that point you would have been quite bandaged and all the rest. But, how incredible. So when you went home from hospital at this point, did you have the clarity about what the message that the universe was sending you? Did you have a sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, straight away, as soon as I was in there, I thought, well, there's no point in being angry about this or blaming anybody. I just have to understand what I'm learning. And quite quickly, I did realize that it was that I didn't ask for help enough. That's why I'd ended up in burnout. That's why I'd had a heart attack. That's why all this stuff was happening, is I didn't ask for help. And it was very difficult to cure myself of being the Lone Ranger. I did try and let people in a bit more, and I felt so vulnerable. I don't know if maybe people watching this have been in hospital, but when you completely crashed, it feels like being a baby. You just can't do anything at all for yourself, and it's very undignified as well, the whole process. I was so helpless. I just thought, if the building burns down, I won't be able to move. Somebody will have to come and pick me up and take me out. It was like that. Oh, but so I thought that was what it was trying to teach me. And I resolved, okay, I'm going to be at the end of 12 weeks. I'm going to be walking. That's what I decided. They weren't so sure. And I'm going to go and see my family there in England, because you really realize who's important to you when you're a little bit roughed up like that. And I hadn't seen them for a while, and I thought, I'm going to go and see them. And I booked a flight for the 12-week mark to make sure they let me out of hospital in time. And I went to see my family, and that was nice because they cared for me as well and patted me a bit. And then I just thought, no, I've got to go to America because I need to learn coaching so that I can help other people go through the journey that I've been through. Now I've had an experience of that helplessness and that failure and that hopelessness and the shame, the whole bundle of it, and the being invincible, not invincible the way we superheroes think we are. So life stops us and taps us on the shoulder. I have to deal with people who are invincible in burnout and don't like it very much, like me, because now I know how to help them. So I was on a mission. I was on a mission by then too. I'm not good with people. Let's make no mistake. I'm really, really grand at coaching. Like one-on-one, I'm good and that sort of thing. But big groups of people, when I went to Dallas, we're in this great noisy hotel with all these other coaches and everything. And it was just, oh no, make it stop. A lot of human energy, a lot of human nervous energy is, I find it hard. It's okay, one or two people at a time, but a lot of people, I think that's why I went into IT, because I didn't, too many people is overwhelming.
Well, at least you knew that about yourself, and you've been able to utilize your strengths in the best possible way. So
I surprised myself. I really enjoyed the energy healing stuff that I did because I'm quite intuitive and I feel people's energy with my hands. Like I'm an empath and I pick up what people's experience is and what their story is without them telling me. So I can relate with people like that because it's more energy than verbal. And also because, I don't know, there's something very natural about connecting with people through their energy rather than through the story that comes out of their mouth. It's somehow much more of a direct connection. Tree huggers probably get the same thing. It's its own natural state to detect each other's energy, and working with energy is delightful. But I had no idea really how I'd go with coaching.
do you use your skills, your gifts in feeling people's energy with your clients in your coaching?
Yeah, I think I do, because I've had quite a lot of training connecting with people in that way, and I love to do it. And when I'm looking at somebody on screen, so much more information is available than what's coming out of their mouth. And I do use it. I do use it to help me see where they're at, to help me a little bit ask the right questions of them, at least, to find out what's happening for them at the deeper level. And also to see when they're in distress, or when they're shut down, or when they're opened up, or when they're covering up, or when they're avoidant. I can pick all of that stuff up. And I do get hunches around the causes of their problems. It's an incredible gift to have been given, that I can perceive this. And it really does help me steer my clients in a way that's productive for them without being too directive or making too many assumptions, I think. So I do use it, yeah. I think one of my biggest assets that I bring, or gifts that I've been given, is I know what to do with people. If I see people once a week, when they come on the screen, I get a kind of feeling about what would be the next right thing for them to learn, or to know, or to try, or to experiment with. I just get a feeling, and then I check that out with them. And I tend to be able to, because of that, I tend to be able to guide people towards their goal, whatever their goal is, in quite a direct path. We don't muck about with stuff they don't need, but we do zoom in on the stuff that they do need. And I think some of that is energy.
Yeah, I love that. And also that it's 100% authentically for your clients. It's for them. It's not like you've got a playbook of a framework or a 7-step process. Right, today's step 3. It sounds to me like you know exactly what they need, and it's based on who they are and where they're at, which is really quite. To me, it's just so valuable and so special. It's what we need more of, especially in this coaching healing space. People need more. I'm going to use the word authentic again, but authentic, organic, people to help them. So you're helping others, and you're doing it using your gifts in a very beautiful way, a natural way. And that's what the world needs more of, I believe.
I think it's very handy to be able to tune in that way, because it saves me marching all over them with size 11 boots, for one thing. I don't need to be dictatorial, like you say, this is step 1, this is step 2, because in this process of burnout recovery, what we're really dealing with is people's whole life, not what just happened to them, not just how they got into burnout and what their experience is, because everybody's experience is different. And everybody's journey is different, and all the components are different, but their whole life, how their whole life brought them to this place. So we delve into quite a lot of interesting cause and effect things throughout their lifetime. And I think what I really love to do with that kind of empathetic side is help them feel listened to, supported, cared for in the most way. And if I can, help them with tools to reduce the suffering that they're in and reduce the recurrence of that suffering as well. So happily, that works out incredibly well. I think it's not an accident that I'm doing this for a living now. Something has prepared me for this during my whole lifetime and now said, okay, here you go. You can't do software anymore. That's done. Now do this. And I love doing it. I would have never expected it because I never have been a people person in a general sense. I'm not an extrovert at all. I'm the guy, I'm the little IT guy they shut in the cellar in the dark. So I didn't see it coming. But I can't imagine anything more rewarding or enjoyable.
At what point, Dex, did you realise that you were doing the thing that you're meant to be doing and that your whole life had prepared you for?
It was when I had the heart attack in the hospital thing. I'm like, oh, this is the tap on the shoulder. Both times, this is the tap on the shoulder. Because I've been working quietly in the energy stuff for quite a few years, but I've been doing it as a hobby because I never thought I was good enough to do it for a living. I really enjoyed it and I was passionate about it, but I thought, oh no, I can't do that for a living. But I enjoy it as an antidote to using my head all day. I'd rather come and work with energy at night with people. And it was quite effective. But I'd thought about this career for probably 20 or 30 years before I did it, but I'd never thought I'd be good enough to do it. And suddenly I got the tap. It's just like, you're on. Oh, okay.
And that tap came in the form of a cartwheeling flying crash.
I'm hard to stop. I'm a bit of a bull at a gate where I was. Maybe not so much now. Very determined.
Have you fully recovered from those injuries?
Ish. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Well, I mean, it took me they said, oh, in about a year, you'll be able to walk again. Come on. Throw me a bone. But now I'm running and all sorts. So I think better than expected. I was in a lot of trouble for quite a long time. I'd have a lot of rehab. I'm pretty good now. Yeah.
Good. I'd love to tap into burnout. You said there's different ways that it appears for people that they experience it. So someone listening to this podcast who's an entrepreneur, a business owner, they're busy, they're working 50-hour weeks potentially, maybe more, there's stress, maybe they've been experiencing stress for a long period of time. And there's something in this conversation that is, there's this little niggling voice in their head that says, I think I need to listen to this. Talk to me about the symptoms or the early stages or what can trigger or show up for people as being those early signs of burnout that they need to be aware of.
Well, perhaps the first one is they're probably working very hard. They're probably no off switch. They're probably checking messages all night, doing as much work as they possibly can and feeling that it's never quite enough. There's generally, some people describe it as stress, but not everybody, but there's almost certainly going to be chronic anxiety. There's almost certainly going to be chronic exhaustion or depletion, lack of energy, loss of motivation, disengagement, cynicism. This is from the World Health Organization definition of burnout, which I to some extent agree with. And they talk about reduced professional efficacy, which not everybody can relate to. Some people are still operating at a pretty high level. But it's like you've been driving at 300 miles an hour and you've never bothered putting your foot on the brakes and you're just driving yourself far, far too hard for far, far too long, and it's all catching up with you. And you're just fed up with the whole thing. Try not to swear about it. And also fed up with all the people that you're around. There comes a point where you just don't want to deal with anyone ever again. And you just kind of withdraw, isolate, hide yourself away, trying to protect your own energy. And also try not to blow your stack too much up. But there's a withdrawal as well. But I think really chronic overwork, chronic exhaustion, chronic anxiety tend to all be leading the same way. And it happens to people typically who are what we used to call type A personality. Overachievers, very hard driven, ambitious, demanding, impatient, perfectionist, usually people pleasers, trying to do everything for everybody, never saying no, never failing to solve a problem, even if it's somebody else's problem. You just want to be conquering everything. And I think it's, generally speaking, those people share a lot of personal attributes. They share a lot of habits. Quite often there's a process that they use to de-stress, which isn't very helpful. Watching too much Netflix or drinking or whatever, there's going to be something which is, okay, now I'm just going to zone out. And that's doesn't usually improve things very much. It just makes them more tired and fed up. So there's kind of a landscape in there that tends to be common. There is a bunch of common features, and then each person has their own separate style within that. So, for example, I get people with ADHD, a fairly common scenario, or I get people who have relationship problems, or I get people for whom anxiety has been a constant theme, or I get people who've got health issues. You know, each person has a different personal journey, and each person has a different personal break point as well. So the break point can be sudden. They might just hit a wall like me and just go, nah, red card. Or it might be a slow build up, like boiling a frog over the years. Some people have had burnout their whole career and not realized it until they come and talk to me, and they're like, oh, but I've been feeling like this since I graduated. Physicians are good for that. Or lawyers. So there's variation, but there's also commonality. The desire to please is usually a need to be a hyperachiever is usually in the mix. To be able to do everything and fix everything is usually in the mix. And they tend to have, because of that, very meteoric careers. They tend to be super achievers for life and have really had a very sharp uptrend in their career. They've created a fast track career and achieved all sorts of good things. But then I think the tipping point in burnout comes when they one day, for whatever reason, realize they're not invincible anymore. They've hit a snag they can't immediately overcome. And that just doesn't compute, because success is the only option.
Wow, Dex, I think you were talking to I don't know, every single entrepreneur that I know, and even myself. You know, I'm listening to you going, my God, you know, what is not me? And the description you just gave, and I'm just going to apply it to my own life. And I'm like, yes, there was a meteoric career rise early on, and it was stopped at a certain point. And I had personal things which would slam me stop, would sort of force me to stop. But I certainly resonate with most of what you're saying. And I personally know people around me who I think are dealing with the physical effects of this quite intensely, shall we say, without realizing.
And that can get really bad. Like when your mind is stressed for long enough, hard enough, you're short enough of sleep, your digestion stops working properly, then you're not supporting the mechanisms of your body, And then chronic illnesses and chronic pain can set in all sorts of different ways. And everybody's kind of got their signature for that too. But I think perhaps what I'm hearing here from you is that the show-stopping event doesn't have to be at work. It can be at work. Sometimes it is, or sometimes it's a personal event. Sometimes it's a loss or a separation or something that's happening outside work. Or it can just be financial, for example. It can be all sorts of things. At just a point where you're thinking, not sure I can deal with this. And everything, all the stuff you've been suppressing we've been suppressing until then. We've been avoiding all the awkward feelings. Everything comes to the surface at once and spills out. We don't know what to do about that either. There's shame. There's a lot of shame with burnout. It comes up when you are in burnout. Shame and guilt and thoughts of failure and inadequacy and imposter syndrome all start to flood up to the surface at once, adding to the discomfort, I think, of the exhaustion and the anxiety.
Absolutely. And I guess leading back to what you said before, this is where people reach for the escapism, or the suppression or the numbing of those emotions, feelings, thoughts. So they reach for the bottle or the shopping addiction or Netflix or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, often. But I think as well, one of the reasons we resort to those types of mechanisms is because a lot of type A people are not good at asking for help. And when I started working I told people I was going to work in burnout when I was learning coaching. And I said, I'm going to work with men in burnout because they're a very undeclared and under-supported area. Like when I was on the training course, almost everybody there was female, supporting other females, typically. I said, no, I really need to support men in burnout because most of them will never, ever put up their hand and say I'm in burnout. And they said to me, that's a very difficult market. Why on earth would you choose that? I said, because those boys are having trouble and they don't have anywhere to turn. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't. Somehow I'm going to find them and help them. Because what I also find, type A people who end up in burnout, men and women, tend to be incredibly passionate, altruistic, wonderful, smart people. We need them, never mind them, we need them back in play because they're tremendous supporters of their people when they're on form. And it's such a shame to have them suffer that much as well. Yeah. So anyway, I did work with men in burnout and I continue to do that. Time to time, I also work with women. Women and men have different styles of burnout. Mm. And I think if I was going to summarize that in one word, it would be the cultural norm of what we think of as the female role and what we think of as the male role is different, and they suffer burnout accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my hat goes off to you, Dex, for supporting men in this space. And like you said, they're very unrepresented. They kind of go unnoticed, a lot of them. We just expect them to be successful and create stuff and do stuff and provide and all the other things. And I know personally men who have hit burnout and they only realise it when things are really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can happen to men and women. Men traditionally have different responsibilities for women, but women also shoulder a burden of responsibility that's quite often unfeasible. The emotional support and practical support for everybody in their life. But I think one of the things that really hit me when I was thinking about starting coaching was the male suicide rate is continuing to climb in Australia. It's pretty high. It's more or less the top cause of death in 15 to 45 age group, and then again at the older age group. And I just thought, wow, that's completely unacceptable. Why on earth are all those men dying? There's a charity in Australia called Are You Bogged, Mate? And it's about farmers farmers with mental health problems because they're the last people on earth to ask for help. And there's a woman who is a farmer who realized this and has started this charity. She goes around and talks to groups of farmers that it's okay to have challenges, things they can't deal with. It's called Are You Bogged, Mate? And I always imagine a tractor pulling them out of a ditch. But that's very successful. And I think those kinds of initiatives supporting people who are not adequately supported in whatever area of life are very much needed these days. And obviously the rate of mental health problems in children, young people these days is way off the charts. It's just grown astronomically. People with eating disorders, ADHD, anxiety, autism, etc., etc., etc. It's unacceptable to me. I can't live with it and do nothing. So if the stubborn men aren't asking for help, I'm going to reach out and offer it to them anyway.
Excellent. That's what you need to do. And that's obviously what you're doing. So, yeah, wow. I love that you're making this difference in the world. Yeah. And you're doing it with passion and purpose. That's very clear. What would you say your genius is? Or your superpower, if you want to call it that?
Oh, I don't know about genius or superpower, but the thing I am good at is mapping out a journey for somebody from whatever kind of burnout they're in to whatever place they're trying to get to. Like that, I say to them, where do you want to get to? What's your ideal situation? I'm quite good at getting them from A to B pretty smartly. I have a very good success rate. I don't know why. I've managed to find a solution that just works for people, but it works differently for each person. So I'm lucky to have that facility, I suppose. The thing I feel sad about when people in burnout is that if you ask them what they want, they just want to feel better. So the first goal we usually move towards, I say, well, okay, set me a goal, measure it. So they say, well, my anxiety is 8 out of 10. I want to take it to a 2 out of 10. So, okay, let's do that. And when we go through and they start feeling better, recovering energy, recovering enthusiasm, everything starts to come back. They get the smile on the face again. Then we start worrying about their job and their career. So when they're exhausted, there's not much point. They've got to feel better first, get something in the tank. And then I say, okay, set some career goals. Let's chase a career goal. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? Where do you want to get to? What's your ideal career resumption move, And whatever that is, I don't know. I turn out to be quite good at steering them there as well, which I feel eternally grateful for. I don't know why I'm good at it, but I just am. And I love it because these are very potent people. These are people who can go back into the workplace and have influence with a lot of other people, and particularly mentor and support a lot of colleagues and juniors and people like that, and even clients or anyone they come in contact with. They can mentor them back as well from the edge. Once they've learned the skills themselves, they can share those skills with the people in their workplace. And I think, well, I can't reach very many people all by myself, but they can, especially if they're working in a big organization or a hospital or something like that. And then they've got a big sphere of influence. And once they know how to fix burnout in themselves, they know how to help other people alleviate their stress as well. Because I think too many people in this world are suffering right now. The incidence of burnout has just gone off the charts in the last 10, 15 years, especially in COVID, got even worse. And it affects everything about a person's life. So anybody's watching this and thinking, well, my human relationships aren't going that well either, with their kids or with their partners, that's going to suffer a lot too. A lot of people come to me kind of teetering on the edge of divorce as well. These things have just collapsed inside them somewhere. Their ability to relate effectively is a bit compromised. Can't stand thinking that people are in that place without knowing what to do. Because they can be the leader that I can't be. I think in some ways I've become a better leader, but I'm probably not a very good boss, arguably, but they can be the leader that I wish I was, or that I wish I was in my career in software. I think I was okay. I think I was effective. I'm not sure I was terribly nice to work for. I was a bit of an angry, demanding type back then.
Well, you're making up for it, Dex. Helping to, empowering these amazing people who are leaders and influencing their world. But you're creating impact yourself. What you've spoken a lot about, burnout in general. Yes, it affects, so many of us. It really does. What's the impact you'd love to make in the next sort of 5-10 years?
I've got a secret one, but I can't tell you.
Oh.
I'll go on then.
Yeah, come on.
I would love it. So what I see is out there in the world, there's a lot of people trying to tackle burnout now, aren't there? At an institutional, organizational level, at a medical level, a lot of people are trying to tackle burnout, and I see what they're trying to do, and I just think, good luck with that. I see a lot of solutions which are tangibly not working. And I think, well, you can't stick a Band-Aid on the outside of burnout and hope it's going to fix anything. You can't put people on leave or create better work-life balance or send them on yoga retreats and hope that's going to fix it, because the only thing that fixes burnout is tackling the root cause of the problem. That's the only thing that can eliminate burnout. And burnout, once people get into burnout, it's going to recur. If they're susceptible to burnout in the first place, even if they fix it, they're pretty likely to go back into burnout again later and have it recur. And I just think, no, that's unacceptable too. So I would love people to have access to a burnout solution that works. I would love everybody to have access to that, to be honest. And that's kind of it sounds lofty and stupid, so I don't usually mention it, but you did ask, so.
Yep. Now it's out there in the world.
Now it's out there.
That's it.
I wish everybody knew, because when I found out, I was so shocked. It wasn't what I expected. I fix it at a root cause level, so people don't go back into burnout. Like what I hope is to set people up for the rest of their career and the rest of their lives, so that they don't need to ever drop back into burnout again and get that stressed again. They can take care of themselves in a way so they don't go back in the hole. And I'm not sure that I've seen many other solutions that will do that.
Well, watch this space. I'm going to check in with you, Dex, to see how you're going with creating that vision. Anything is possible. I have another question for you as we're coming kind of to the close. And it's this. What's the one thing you wish you knew way back earlier in your career that you know now, that when you were starting out you wish you'd known at the time, that you've learned now?
Well, there's probably a couple of things. One is, it doesn't matter how I'm living or what my behaviors are like or how internally messed up I am. I'm actually not broken. This is the design feature. Pretty much everybody can be fine with the way that they're built and the way they behave. I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd known that it was okay to be me, in other words. I wish I'd known that it was safe to be connected with people, because for a long time it really wasn't for me. And I wish I'd known that the only person who needs to approve of me is me, and that I can do that anytime I like. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to care for myself. Because I think a lot of people aren't taking care of themselves. They're being really in their heads, very, very mean to themselves in burnout. And I didn't really think about that being optional. I was actually allowed to be the champion of me, which is what I am now and what I teach people to be. Be your biggest supporter. There's no barrier to that. I just never absorbed that idea. I thought I wasn't good enough and I had to beat myself up. Not really surprising then that I got into burnout.
They're great insights and reflections. I can't believe the time, Dex. And you said to me in the green room that you're not much of a talker, but then you said that then I get talking and I don't stop talking. And so it looks like I figured out the magic formula to get you to talk, and we could just keep talking. I know that. You
pressed the magic chat button, didn't you?
I did. Yes. So much fun when I do that. Now, there's a couple more things, but I just wanted to open it up to you to let the audience know how they can get in contact. Obviously, we've got your contact details in the show notes here below this video or on the audio. Is there something you'd like to share with the audience?
Actually, well, in support of my rather ridiculous, fantastical vision, I did put out this week a new course where people can teach themselves some of the skills that I teach clients, how to rescue themselves from the symptoms of burnout. And so that is quite accessible. It's also very low cost, I think, just putting the toe in the water the same as I did when I hit my burnout. I've heard some concepts then that were incredibly useful to me straight away. And I've tried to share something similar in the course so that people who are feeling really a little bit rock bottom can bail themselves out of it.
Fabulous. And how can they get hold of that?
It's at go.dexrandall.com/beatburnout, but we'll presumably put the link in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely, we will. Thank you. That sounds incredible. Very, very generous and exciting that people can get access to that.
Also, I do a one-on-one coaching program. It's a very elite program, runs for 6 months, and it's from misery to career growth. So people can contact me about that as well at dexrandall.com.
Fabulous. Dex, in closing, I'm wondering if there's a nugget or a little piece of advice that you'd like to leave our listeners with.
You know that little voice in your head that tells you you've done stuff wrong? So we got this little inner critic, right? Just tends to wobble on all day. We can't turn that off. It's a feature of being human. But what you can do is you can change the voice, because it's actually trying to protect you. It's saying, don't make this mistake. It'll be bad. Right? Don't do that thing. You'll get hurt. What it's trying to do is trying to protect us. So what we can do instead is say, hey, thanks for the tip, but what I'd rather you told me is this. I'd rather you give me something positive and inspiring. You can train the voice to say different things to you by just going, oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming. I know you're trying to help me, but please tell me this thing. This is the kind of support I really want. You can retrain it.
Wow. That's gold. And I wonder how many people's little inner critic is going, don't listen to him. That's not true. No. Oh, that's a whole other conversation, I know. But I thank you.
Yeah, there's inner resistance for sure.
Yeah.
But try it. But shouting at the inner critic isn't helpful. Getting into an argument with it and resisting it is not helpful. But actually going, oh yeah, I know you're trying to protect me. You must be exhausted. Why don't you do it like this? Because I'd prefer if you did this. Tell me something I did today that was good. And the inner critic will go, oh, okay, here's something.
Thank you. That's gold. Really, really interesting and different. I haven't heard anything like that before. So, Dex, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your journey and your insights, your knowledge, your wisdom, the impact that you want to make in the world, that you are making. It's very exciting. And I salute you and support you and just want to thank you.
Thank you so much for having this discussion today. You brought a lot out of me I wasn't going to say.
Well, I'm very grateful. It obviously needed to be said.
I really appreciate you giving me this platform as well and having a chat with you. We spoke earlier before this, and I very much warmed to your style of thinking as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, this hasn't been about you, but I'm glad to be speaking with you personally today.
Thank you very much. I'm really honoured. I am. It's been a joy. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I did in hosting it. So please rate, review, and leave us a comment below. And finally, also, I'd love you to share it with a friend. Someone who you think something positive from it, someone who will enjoy it. You know, we're here for each other, so please share the love. If you'd like to reach out and talk to me and learn about how you can make a bigger difference in the world by serving big ideal clients that you have with purpose, please get in contact over at journeypoint.com.au. See you on the next episode of Six Star Leaders Podcast.